And we are live. I mean live at the intersection here on the Midas Touch Network. I'm Michael Popok, and welcome. Todd Blanche. Need I say more? But I will. That embattled pick to be the nominee for Attorney General has a body of work, for lack of a better term, that even Chuck Schumer has referred to as a rap sheet. And now the Senate Democrats, led by people like Senator Whitehouse, Cory Booker, Blumenthal, and the rest who are on the Senate Judiciary Committee, teed up for tomorrow's 9 a.m. start of a confirmation hearing for Todd Blanche, where they will be equally divided, 12, unless the Republicans wake up in the morning and pick the replacement for Lindsey Graham. It'll be tied 12-12, making procedural maneuvers very difficult. I guess they think they're going to be able to slam Blanche through, but he lost his patron, he lost his rabbi, he lost his shepherd in Lindsey Graham, and now somebody like Ted Cruz is going to have to try to take over to slam this guy through as Attorney General. But people like White House and the senator from Pennsylvania, Blumenthal, and Cory Booker from New Jersey are ready. And we're going to talk about procedure and the growing scandals that Todd Blanche is prosecuting, that he wears like a millstone around his neck. There's about a dozen of them. And even Todd Blanche apparently had to admit that he made a major mistake. Try to get Dick Durbin, the leading Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee from Illinois, try to get his vote in a visit. He apparently admitted that he made a major mistake with the Trump IRS settlement that is the subject of a 56-page scathing rebuke by Judge Williams in my neck of the woods in Miami. I know her well. And just as I had predicted, she dropped the opinion before the confirmation hearing, in which she effectively said that Todd Blanche participated on a fraud on the court, a deceit of the court, and she had the silver bullet to put not only the Jan 6th weaponization fund out of business, but also the next day settlement where Todd Blanche created a super pardon, a giant release for Trump and Trump's family of tax liability and criminal exposure. See, that's what this was all about. This had nothing to do with the branding of $1,776,000, $1,776 million, 1776. Donald Trump doesn't give a rat's ass about paying the Jan 6ers through that fund. It was all a smokescreen to cover up for what Todd Blanche did in the cover of darkness the very next day to give his family the thing that the Supreme Court didn't provide Donald Trump, the get out of jail free card for past crimes and current crimes and current tax audit liability, and for his family and all the organizations too. That's what Donald Trump cared about. And now you got Blanche throwing Trump under the bus. He'll say and do anything now to get a vote. We've got E Jean Carroll scandal, which he touches Todd Blanche. We'll talk about that in a minute. But a great development as E Jean Carroll announces to the world with a one-liner, the eagle has landed, from E Jean Carroll's own social media account, meaning she got the $5.6 million in change, still waiting on $92 million. And she did something so amazing that no court required her to do, that she did to stick it to Donald Trump. Let's remember who E Jean Carroll is, right? She's the only despite hundreds of women who have come out with great courage to say, me too, I was harassed, I was abused by Donald Trump, some of which even testified in E Jean Carroll's case. She is the only person on planet Earth to ever obtain from a jury a judgment, a proof that Donald Trump sexually abused her. That will forever be one of many things that E Jean Carroll should be known as. She will not let being a judged Trump survivor define her. And she has plans for the money, but more importantly, she didn't do it for the money. And she did something what a masterstroke today. Do I have you on your edge of your seat yet here on the intersection? I'll tell you what that is as we get into the segment. You've got the Supreme Court, at least two members of it, in Justice Kagan and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, were on Capitol Hill today. And when they weren't paying some sort of respect or tribute to the death of Lindsey Graham, let's time out on that, hold a pin in that. Amy Coney Barrett is not Justice Amy Coney Barrett if it wasn't for Lindsey Graham. Yeah, Mitch McConnell. But Lindsey Graham shoved that nomination through in record time for less than 40 days after when Obama lost, or no, sorry, his second term was over, right? And Trump got elected or whatever it was, or no, let me reverse it. Trump's term over. Next person coming in, a Democrat, and Trump got another pick. Her name is Amy Coney Barrett after the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That was a Lindsey Graham special. Say what you want about Lindsey Graham, and I could go on and on about all the terrible things that he did. But at one time, when he was part of the Gang of 14 in the Senate, he actually did bipartisan things when it came to Supreme Court justices. That all ended around the time of Brett Kavanaugh. Guy was a lawyer, Lindsey Graham. And we'll talk about the Supreme Court, why they were there, what they were talking about. Got some updates about some voting cases all backfiring on Donald Trump, some database cases all backfiring on Donald Trump, and a new case filed by 12 attorneys general, led by Rob Bonta of California, to stop the Paramount, Time Warner, the Paramount Warner Brothers merger, which would have the impact of raising movie ticket prices, basic cable prices, streaming service prices, and everything else. And we'll so much to cover, but I'm going to focus a lot of my attention on Todd Blanche, because his confirmation hearing, which will be live streamed starting tomorrow on Legal AF YouTube. Just go to the live tab, set your reminders. It's going to be 9. I'm going to be up at 8:45 a.m. with a pregame show, and with Adam Klasfeld joining me. And then we'll go right into whenever they gavel in the hearing. And what can we expect there? Well, we got the revelation that Blanche will say anything to try to get the job, including admitting on the heels of Judge Williams' 56-page decision. Let me talk about that, and we'll back into the other aspects of the hearing. Donald Trump brings a case against the Internal Revenue Service, which he controls, the Treasury Department, which he controls, to try to force them, because he controls both sides of the lawsuit, and get them to quote unquote settle. When Judge Williams gets wise to it and says, how are you in this courtroom? How are you using literally my federal bench and court system in order to give a phony imprimatur of legitimacy over something you could never accomplish? And if you don't have a legitimate lawsuit, because you don't have two adverse parties on either side of the V, which they didn't, then the Attorney General, in this case Todd Blanche, is powerless under the Judgment Act statute to settle the claim, because it's not a legitimate claim. It's not a legitimate lawsuit. He can settle claims other ways, but he can't do it dragging the court in as cover. And if the lawsuit is phony, then the settlement is phony. And that because Todd Blanche doesn't have the power to settle, then the creation of the Jan 6 fund is illegitimate and phony, as is the next day super pardon Todd Blanche gave to Donald Trump, his family, colleagues, and associates. So we always said that the most efficient silver bullet would be not Judge Brinkema in the Eastern District of Virginia blocking the creation of the fund, which she has, subject to her further proceedings, but it would be one shot, bam, by Judge Williams, declaring the whole thing a fraud on the court. And she has done exactly that. And then she started meting out punishment, monetary and non-monetary, using her inherent authority and her authority under a certain sanction rule of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure we call Rule 11. As the non-monetary, she sent everybody to the principal's office. She referred Todd Blanche over for bar disciplinary proceedings. She sent Stan Woodward, the number 2 in the Department of Justice, to bar disciplinary proceedings in D.C. and in New York. She sent Alejandro Brito, the local lawyer in Florida, to the Florida bar for disciplinary proceedings, and for David Z. Epstein, unfortunately named these days, who joined in this cabal, this conspiracy to defraud the court. She barred him from practicing in the Southern District of Florida for at least a year. Then she started handing out fines. She said, okay, Trump's side, you're going to pay for the briefing of the 35 former judges led by Judge Ludig and Judge Gertner, which was spearheaded by former New Jersey Attorney General Matt Plotkin and Norm Eisen. And you're going to pay for all their attorney's fees for all the briefing they did to bring this to the judge's attention, and another set of lawyers that guided the judge through this process. Now, I've heard a rumor, although I'll get it cleared tomorrow when I interview Judge Ludig, that the Ludig side has turned down it won't be applying for the money. They should. Let me see if I can convince, if that's true, Judge Ludig to do it. She also said it was a fraud on the court, it was deceit, it was bad faith, and all of these parties. And she went through in excruciating detail, although I delighted in all of it. In fact, I'll be doing a video tomorrow of about the 14 different places in the order where she details in that level of detail that only a federal judge can do about the relationship between Donald Trump and Blanche, about the relationship between Stan Woodward and Gen 6 defendants, about their already being subject of disbarment and disciplinary proceedings in other matters. And then just ripping back the curtain of the charade that they tried to perpetrate on a federal court to convince her that this was a legitimate lawsuit brought by Donald Trump in his personal capacity. I mean, just line after line, footnote after footnote, page after page, chronicling the conspiracy for all to see, which should be like catnip for the Senate Democrats on the Judiciary Committee, who are ready. In fact, and just as a programming note, Wednesday, I'll have Judge Ludig join me to take a little bit of a victory lap, well-deserved, about what Judge Williams just did. You see the cascading effect, these dominoes, right? Right on time for the confirmation hearing. Here comes Judge Williams. And now people like Senator Whitehouse, former U.S. attorney in Rhode Island, ready. In fact, we got a best of Senator Whitehouse as he made the rounds today on mainstream media. We've had him here before. He was with me a week or so ago, talking about how ready he's cracking his knuckles and how ready he is to take on what he considers to be the most corrupt and unfit candidate to be the attorney general in history. And that's saying a lot considering a few that Donald Trump has put up lately. Let's play the best of Sheldon Whitehouse.
Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse. Senator, your sense of what it's going to take to actually move those of your Republican colleagues who remain persuadable on Blanche's nomination?
I would say one of two things. One would be a sense of real uncertainty, even horror, at the way that Blanche is operating the Department of Justice, and concern that if that continues in a new administration, Republicans could be the victim of a malignant Department of Justice. However, We've seen our colleagues have real trouble finding their spines with that kind of a concern, on principle or on the merits. So the second concern is how rotten Blanche is and continues to be or becomes in the months ahead between now and November. They're looking at a very challenging election. They're looking at a deeply unpopular and flawed president. And they're worried about how much Trump baggage they have to carry into the election. And every single one of the Republican senators who's up for election is going to be looking at Blanche and saying, what is this guy going to do between now and November that I'm going to have to answer for? And if you look at his track record to date, there's an enormous amount of reason for fear and anxiety that he's going to continue to do disgraceful things that they will then be accountable for having voted for him.
Bona fide cornucopia of issues that you could go over with Blanche, whether it's the weaponization fund, whether it is his handling of the Epstein files, whether it is the prosecution of perceived political enemies. I just wonder what you think is actually most effective here if the objective is to move one of your handful of your Republican colleagues.
Yeah, I think if you look at, for instance, Senator Tillis has said very plainly that people who deny January 6th and are sympathetic to the rioters who beat up police officers, that's a red line for him. Grassley might be concerned about the failure of this administration to produce information. He's always been a kind of, open books transparency kind of guy. Cornyn has already expressed concerns. He's a former attorney general himself about the way in which Blanche has conducted himself. And all the way down the dais, you have Senator Moody, who is in a head-to-head race in Florida for her seat from Alex Vindman, and who does not.
Yeah, that, when I had Senator Whitehouse on, who some people have said is my doppelganger, I'm not that white yet. I'm getting there. This administration, by the time this administration, it's like watching Obama and other presidents age. I'll be that white by the time this is over. But when I had Senator Whitehouse on, all kidding aside, I didn't do it on the air because I didn't want to embarrass him. But I played a clip from Rocky Balboa, that great movie, Rocky, when Sylvester Stallone, I'm not talking about his politics, I'm just talking about the movie, was pushing 60. And about building herding bombs and having to throw those herding bombs because he didn't have the physical stamina anymore or the ability to spar, and he couldn't train anymore the way he used to. But he had to hit him with herding bombs. And I said to him, Sheldon, are you ready to hit him with herding bombs? Because that's what America demands now. We don't want to see the niceties of, thank you, Mr. Blanche, and isn't it odd that I don't want all that. I don't want powdered wigs, right? I don't want quill pens. I want them blasted. I could do it. We could all do it. I've been a litigator for 35 years. I've cross-examined better than Todd Blanche into oblivion. They got to do it. Sheldon was a U.S. attorney. Cory Booker is amazing. Blumenthal was a attorney general, and I think he was a U.S. attorney as well. Blast the guy. There should be briefing books and point-by-point cross-examination prepared and ready to go, updated through Judge Williams' ruling and the stuff I'm going to talk about related to the Epstein scandal and Katie Fang. All of it. We could do it we could do it here. Do it with me. Ready? And by the way, if you want to ask me questions in notes, my team will pick it up and I'll try to answer what I can as we get closer to our break. But let's start. Jan 6 weaponization fund scandal. Full pardons and release for the Trump family tax liability scandal. Vindictive prosecution scandal. Grand jury abuse scandal. Indicting Donald Trump's political enemies without a good faith basis scandal. Criminal contempt charges started in various federal courts scandal. Contempt of court charges started in other courts. Frequent violations of court orders scandal. Abuse of civil liberties and civil rights scandal. failure to properly advise or to allow departments of our government under Donald Trump, like Homeland Security and ICE, to run roughshod over civil liberties and civil rights, leading to people's deaths and executions on the streets of America. Scandal. That all lays at the feet of Todd Blanche. And now I'll turn to the Epstein cover-up and the cover-up of the cover-up scandal, and an FBI that is out of control and run by somebody who's alleged to be a public drunk. And we all can see for ourselves, bro, dumbass is not qualified to be in charge, one of the leaders in charge of our national intelligence and our intelligence community. You have to have intelligence in order to run an aspect of our intelligence community. There was, I bet you there was a moment during, you can tell I'm in the unbridled Popok section of the intersection. There was probably a moment where two people had quite different responses to the death of Lindsey Graham. Todd Blanche probably shit his pants because he just lost his most reliable shepherd to get him through the minefield and get him confirmed. And I don't care if Ted Cruz takes over or whoever they put in there in that chair. No, it's not going to be the sister of Graham on the Judiciary Committee. At the same time, Kash Patel was probably like, whoosh, dodged a bullet. I was about to get fired this weekend. He gets called onto the carpet by Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, and Stephen Miller, likely, to answer for all of his profligate spending, all of his squiring his girlfriend around town on the company dime, on our taxpayer dime, in corporate taxpayer paid jets, buying, entire fleets of BMWs and the rest. And he's just about to go to the White House, and Lindsey Graham dies. And what does he do about it? I got to figure out a way to get in on this story. Okay, I'll post the FBI is giving full cooperation to who? The guy died of an aortic dissection. He died because his aorta in his heart gave out, much like his father. This is going to be trying to crack the Lindbergh case. So many people said so many disgusting things, all on the Republican side, in the death of one of their lions, not mine, but one of the lions of the Senate. Say what you want about him. He got shit done for whomever he wanted to get shit done for. Right? You got Stephen Miller's wife. I thought Stephen Miller was the most disgusting Miller in that family. Oh, no. Stephanie Miller, or whatever, Katie Miller, whatever her name is. It's not even worth getting her name right. In jumping on Joe Biden's eloquent eulogy to a friend of his. They were members of, I think, the Gang of 14 back in the day when Biden was on the Judiciary Committee. And he wrote a long piece that, a Joe Biden-like piece. I'm sure AI didn't write it, about Lindsey Graham without getting into the politics around. It's like when John McCain died. And then what does she write? Wonder who on his staff wrote this. I don't know. Who on Donald Trump's staff? Oh, right. Natalie Harp writes hundreds of social media posts masquerading as and impersonating the president. She should be investigated and indicted for masquerading as a public official. There should, right? The department... Natalie Harp is busy running around, another 35-year-old blonde running around behind Donald Trump after his golf cart. She should be indicted by the next Department of Justice for what she's doing. Auto Pen Joe? How about this one that's busy when she's not, apparently, according to reporting, Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, writing love notes and Post-it notes for Donald Trump. Oh, I miss our times together. I miss our times together when we talked about everything and nothing at all. Holy shit. If Melania found that note, well, it's in the book. So we all sort of found the note. But she's not doing that and lying about other things. She thinks, they all think they're immune from prosecution investigation. Wait till the adults take over. And you'll see, you'll get a little piece of it tomorrow. And if Todd Blanche thinks he's going to yell and scream his way and cry his way through tomorrow's confirmation hearing, he's got another thing coming. I had Michael Ludig, Judge Michael Ludig, formerly of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. He should be the Chief Justice of the United States. This should be the Michael Ludig court. the Luttig court, not the Roberts court. He got beat out by Roberts, and he was a Republican. He was a conservative. He was a constitutionalist and a federalist till he saved America by telling Mike Pence, remember him, used to be a vice president, that he had to pull the lever and certify the election for Joe Biden, and he had no other choice, the tweet that saved America. And ever since, he's the one, along with others, that put together 300 judges, former federal and state judges, to file motions and briefs and amicus briefs to save America. And I had Judge Luttig, who I've interviewed now over the last 3 years, 4 years, I don't know, a dozen times. He loves coming on the show and talking to our audience. And I asked him point blank, is Todd Blanche fit to be the Attorney General of the United States? Play the clip. From what you've observed with Todd Blanche since he's been in as the Deputy Attorney General, now as the Acting Attorney General, now as the nominee to be the Attorney General, and all the things that Judge Luttig just outlined, is he unfit to be the Attorney General of the United States, Judge?
No, of course he is. It's not even a question. I mean, it's an embarrassment to America that the President of the United States would nominate this man the Attorney General of the United States, just like it was an embarrassment that he nominated Pam Bondi before him.
Yeah. Andres?
I have to tell you, I agree. And it's so disappointing because this is a lawyer before this set of events in his representation of Donald Trump, which continues apparently till today, was well regarded. We know people in common. I do not know Mr. Blanche, but his conduct and Exhibit A is this settlement agreement and his, as you say, his statements about unilaterally terminating it, which of course are ineffective. He plainly ought not be the Attorney General of the United States.
Yeah, we're going to be watching closely that confirmation hearing on the 15th of July. I've point blank talked to the senators that are on that committee, and I've on behalf of my audience, and I said, you've got to be prepared for this. I mean, if you want, just look at the 101 judges who just filed a 40-page or 60-page single-spaced bar complaint. It's all laid out there, exactly what you need, all the categories that you need. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. You guys have too. I mean, I've never seen criminal contempt against the United States of America. I've never seen not only federal judges dismissing indictments for vindictive prosecution or for political motivation, but the Department of Justice having to come into court to dismiss its own indictments after it's revealed that they put on and suborned perjury, false testimony, false documents, grand jury misconduct. I mean, Judge, in your career, did you ever see the Department of Justice a dozen times have to dismiss an indictment because of its own foul play?
I can tell you as a matter of historical fact that for 250 years, there's not been one single instance like the 50 instances that we're talking about under this president and these attorneys general. Not one, Michael, in 250 years.
Yeah. So, I mean, Judge Luttig has a great way, a very pithy way to bring this to a head. And so Todd Blanche, I don't know who's prepping him right now to within an inch of his life to try to get him through this. Now, let me just talk before I take my first break about the mechanics. Lindsey Graham dies. We all know that now. The sister is going to fill out the term until a special election on August 11th in South Carolina, so the people choose. That will pick the nominee for the Republicans to run up against the Democratic nominee. That's what happens there. And until that election at the midterms, the sister is going to sit in that role until there's a replacement for her. Not uncommon. I think people noted in the chat today, Bob Dole, widow, a lot of widows and sisters sort of take over in this particular moment to kind of hold the ring until the people vote her. I don't think she's running. I don't think she's going to run for the special election. I don't think the Lindsey Graham family is that kind of family in South Carolina that she would just get the job, nor do I think she wants the job. And she doesn't get his seat on the Judiciary Committee. They're not going to put Lindsey Graham's sister on the Judiciary Committee. Okay. They're going to, if they don't do it by tomorrow morning, they'll do it before the vote. They'll need to add a new senator who's not already on there to be on the Judiciary Committee. That committee is almost evenly split. The Republicans are in the majority by one, now no majority. At this particular moment, 12-12. Lindsey Graham was the 13th vote, normally 13-12. But even there, as you heard Senator Whitehouse point out, there are weak links for Trump of his own making. Senator Cornyn of Texas, who just lost to Ken Paxton in a primary because Donald Trump supported Paxton. You think Cornyn is bending over backwards to help Todd Blanche? How about Tom Tillis of North Carolina? The senator that Trump can't even remember is still in the Senate. He's like, well, that's why he's no longer in the Senate. Like, no, he's still in the Senate. He just won't be there when the new Congress convenes in January of 2028. But he's there now. And he's already said, I'm not going to vote for an election denier. Watch the questioning of Tom Tillis about election denial. Watch Cornyn about things like the Jan 6 weaponization fund. You see already Blanche trying to get out ahead of that story. He only has to lose one. He can't afford to lose any votes. He loses one and he's done. One and done. And for those that were wondering who's on the committee, I'll tell you now who's on the committee. The Democrats are Sheldon Whitehouse, Amy Klobuchar, Minnesota, Chris Coons of Delaware, Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, Mazie Hirono of Hawaii, Cory Booker, my home state of New Jersey, Alex Padilla of California, Peter Welch of Vermont, Adam Schiff of California. Okay. The Republicans left are John Cornyn, Texas, Mike Lee, Utah, Ted Cruz, Texas, Josh Hawley, Missouri, Tom Tillis, North Carolina, John Kennedy, no, not that one, Louisiana, Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee, Eric Schmidt, Missouri, Katie Britt, Alabama, and Ashley Moody, who was picked to replace Marco Rubio and is in a fight for her life in her Senate campaign against Alexander Vindman. So I'm not sure she's ready to give an easy pass to Todd Blanche when she's got to worry about getting votes and having some sort of political viability in a state that's turning purple, along with her face, about having to deal with these issues. So we're going to see a new pick. I think we're going to see somebody like Ted Cruz. It's not going to be Chuck Grassley, who is the come on, I mentioned Chuck Grassley. We're missing one. Oh yeah, Chuck Grassley is the chairman of Iowa, and Dick Durbin is the ranking member on the Democrats. Where Grassley's not going to do it. He doesn't have the personality. He's like 85 years old. He's not going to do it. It's going to be like Ted Cruz. I think it's going to be Ted Cruz to try to play the. It's like when you go to Broadway and they announce that at the matinee the star you wanted has died or is not available, and so they're going to put in an understudy. He's sort of going to be the understudy for Graham. That's what I believe will happen, and we'll talk more about all of that and when they finally get their votes together. And, it's going to be people like Sheldon Whitehouse working the aisles to try to get a vote. I'm looking at you, Cornyn. I'm looking at you, Tillis, to come on over and block Blanche. And if he gets blocked, he's going to have to go back and be the acting for about another 200 days under the Vacancy Reform Act. And then Trump will try to extend it. And there'll be lawsuits over it. And then, Blanche, but Blanche's not going to go anywhere. He'll just go back to being the deputy acting, or whatever it is. I don't think you'll see another nominee by Donald Trump before this is all said and done. If he's really pushed, he can then go to his bench. Somebody like Lee Zeldin, who is the EPA director, who's terrible. Somebody like, God help us, Harmeet Dillon, who's the in charge of destroying the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. There's other people out there, God help us, Jeanine Pirro, You know, does he reach down and try to convince Aileen Cannon, the judge in Florida, who was rumored to be his first pick that he wanted coming into office this time around? Or is she holding out for, shudder the thought, Supreme Court? These are all things we'll have to follow very, very closely. We do it here on The Intersection, so many different ways to support what I do, what we do together, starting with this podcast. You're on The Intersection. We need downloads. Can I just say, be crass and just say it out loud? We need more audio downloads of the show. We get hundreds of thousands. We got 8,000 people with us today. We get hundreds of thousands of views on YouTube, which the generosity of spirit here is breathtaking. But in the world that I live in of podcasting, I need more audio downloads. Just go over, even if you don't listen, just go over to the audio, Google, Spotify, whatever, Apple, whatever, and hit The Intersection and then download it. Boom, that helps us. Then I do my work sort of in two worlds that are overlapping and collaborative. Midas, where I do a lot of my videos and do Legal AF and Intersection here. And then I curate the world of Legal AF on the Legal AF YouTube channel. Legal AF YouTube channel. We are trying to crush this summer and grow and get us to about 1.3, 1.4 million subscribers by the time the summer's over, certainly as we reach into the midterms. And we're doing it. We're doing it with your help, but we need your help. All you got to do is hit a subscribe button. That's it. There's no payment involved. That's all for free. And in return, you'll get a dozen videos a day. I usually do the first 4 or 5. My contributors and collaborators. I got a big announcement too right here. My collaborators and contributors include Adam Klasfeld of All Rise News, amazing work. I've got Court Accountability, and their Lisa Graves and Mike Sachs and Alex Aronson about corruption in the federal court system. The American Civil Liberties Union is with us for regular contributions, and I just landed alongside them the NAACP. The NAACP is going to start with us on Monday with some live streaming. I'll be interviewing their general counsel soon. It's an organization I've wanted to join forces with since forever, since before I was a podcaster, and we now got the NAACP. So Democracy Forward with Skye Perryman's group and her 150 lawsuits against the Trump administration regularly with us. The Democratic Attorneys General, I'll be going again right before the midterms to Detroit to sit in on there and be a fly on the wall with the 24 Democratic Attorneys General and have them talk about, what do you think we're going to be talking about? Voting protection, database protection, election protection. That's it, man. That's my entire topic. My team, that's all you got to do to prep. That's all I'm going to be doing in September. It's the day after Labor Day, and then we'll get that up here. I just interviewed Attorney General Rob Bonta of California, along with 11 other attorneys general, about bringing that case to block the Paramount Skydance Warner Brothers merger. That means CNN. That means MTV. That means Major League Baseball. That means streaming services, HBO and the other one, Showtime, and theater seat prices. And they're stepping into the fray there. So that's what we got going on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. Then we've got this other thing that some people are like, of course, Substack. And other people are like, what's Substack? But we've got Substack. We're a leader there, a thought leader, usually top 5, top 10 of rising U.S. politics channels, top 30 overall. Another 10 pieces of content. I do a live every day, whether it kills me or not. I do a live report. We bring on 1,000 or 2,000 people about whatever I can update on as the day progresses. And sometimes I bring in guests, Adam Klasfeld, All Rise News, and different guests, Scott McFarland. We got a new chief economist for the Midas Touch Network from Platypus. I'm going to bring that guy on. But, we're collaborative here. Katie Fang. These are the ways to support what we do. I got a law firm. People know I'm a lawyer, right? And I formed a law firm really just to focus on the Midas Touch and Legal AF community. And that's primarily who we represent. So if you've been injured in an accident, or you know somebody that has a catastrophic accident, God forbid it ended up in death or negligence of others, major civil rights violation, medical malpractice, and the like, there's the QR code. Brand new website, same fighters for you at the Popok firm. And then we have our sponsors. Yes, the Intersection has attracted sponsors that Jordy Mycellus and me have vetted for your viewing pleasure. And here's, let's take a break for our sponsors. If you have a cat like we do, you know they're picky. Chanel turns her nose up at just about everything, except Smalls. Since switching, I've noticed more energy, a softer coat, and honestly, a much less offensive litter box. That's because Smalls Fresh Cat Food is protein-packed recipes made with preservative-free, 100% human-grade ingredients you'd find in your fridge, and it's delivered right to your door. Since switching to Smalls, I've noticed an improvement in my cat's energy, coat, and digestion. More of the nutrients are digestible, which means less junk comes out the other end. And yes, that means less, what's the word? Stinky poops. Forbes ranked Smalls the best overall cat food. BuzzFeed says, my cats went completely ballistic for this stuff. And after switching to Smalls, 88% of cat owners reported overall health improvements. Plus, you can try Smalls risk-free. They'll refund you if your cat won't eat their food. So stop serving your little carnivore a bowl of processed shortcuts. For a limited time, because you're an Intersection listener, get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/intersection. That's 60% off your first order, plus free shipping and free treats for life when you head to smalls.com/intersection. If you're 64 or older, you need to understand this. Medicare is so complicated that many people never actually see all of their options. You spend decades paying into the healthcare system. Then suddenly at 65, you're expected to sort through thousands of plans, endless fine print, changing drug coverage, provider networks, all while being flooded with ads and sales pitches. That's why I like Chapter. Chapter is the only Medicare advisor that compares every plan nationwide. My friends over at Midas, they've worked with them for years, and the feedback I got has been stellar. They walk through your doctors, prescriptions, and priorities to help you understand what coverage actually fits your life. And if your current plan is already the best fit, they'll tell you that too. No pressure, no gimmicks, just real guidance in a system that most people find overwhelming. If you're turning 65 or already on Medicare, give Chapter a call. The call is free, and they can review your options in under 20 minutes. And we're back. We wrap up the procedure here. Senate Judiciary Committee. I know somebody wrote Susan Collins is on it. I don't believe Susan Collins is on that committee. She may have to vote for him, and she's expressing she would vote for him or not vote for him if he comes out of committee, but he's got to come out of committee. If he dies in committee, he's not getting a floor vote. That's the fight over the 13 versus 12 that's going on right now on all of that. So let me answer a couple of questions here before we switch gears. Do I believe Todd Blanche will be confirmed? Let me answer it this way. I had a great interview. It's going to be up #1 tomorrow on Legal AF YouTube channel with Brendan Ballou as I transition into the E Jean Carroll, into the Jeffrey Epstein scandal aspect of Todd Blanche. Brendan Ballou runs, along with others, Public Integrity Project, Lawyers for Katie Fang, their attempt to root out corruption in the federal court system and the federal government. And they do it with a series of lawsuits that they have filed. It's amazing. They've only been around since January, but they've filed some of the most momentous historic lawsuits around. And he had a great observation. He said, one question could trip up Todd Blanche and set him up for impeachment. I said, okay. He said, if somebody should ask him, will you comply as the Attorney General and the people under you with orders of judges that, let me try it again. Will you comply with orders that you don't agree with? Putting aside whether you'll appeal them, until they're reversed on appeal, will you comply with court orders? Yes or no? Let's say you disagree with them, would you refuse to comply with a court order? Now, if he says, I would never knowingly refuse to comply with a court order, okay, and when he does, you then impeach him over it. If he says he would, it's a disqualifier for being confirmed. So either gets confirmed by lying, which is then the grounds for impeachment, or he confesses that he would, because he believes that his boss has every right to interpret the law on his own, that equal to what a judge in a federal black robe meets out. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But I think that's a very good way, to trip him up. But the White Houses and Blumenthals of the world and Bookers better be ready. And there's been enough testimony over the last 19 months by Todd Blanche that they should be rolling clips. They should be like Midas Touch, and my guys should be like Ben Meiselas, like go to the clip, go to the clip, go to the clip, making a clip show, and tie him up, and cut him off when he starts crying or whining. Cut him off. Turn off his mic. Now let me turn to the Epstein cover-up, because just about an hour or two after Judge Williams issued her order. She'll testify one day. Issued her order against Todd Blanche and all the other private lawyers and Scott Bessent and all of that. Along comes Katie Fang, friend of mine before our Midas days in Miami, independent journalist who brought historically the first case to have a judge rule against the Department of Justice about violations of the Epstein Transparency Act by way of the Administrative Procedures Act, and got Judge Emmett Sullivan, to issue a preliminary injunction and an order to show cause on 5 major categories of documents that Todd Blanche by name, needed to produce, and that he didn't. Information about a torture video and who said, "I loved watching it." Handwritten notes that supported an FBI series of reports about a woman who claimed that she was sexually abused by Donald Trump when she was 13 years old. Foreign language documents that were not translated, as if when the federal government is doing a international criminal case, when they get to a box of foreign language documents, they just throw up their hands and go, "It's so complicated." Yeah, no. Or when they are required under the Constitution to provide the other side with exculpatory or inculpatory information, what we call Brady information in a criminal case, they just go, "We don't know what's in the box. We don't know what it says." No. 4, where's the redaction log? You have 200,000 pages of black. Where is the log that tells us why on a certain page you've blacked out something, the date, the time, the place, and all of that, so that a judge can determine whether the blackout was proper? Where is it? And the judge ordered, translate the documents immediately. Tell us who the torture video information is about, or tell us why you can't tell us. Get the redaction log prepared and delivered, and turn over the handwritten notes for the person who says she's a Trump survivor. And instead of complying, you don't have to file anything, just comply. They filed a response. And when we saw it, we reported on Midas Touch and Legal AF that this is going to give the judge heartburn. He's not going to be happy with the response. Foreign language documents, we didn't do them because we didn't do them. Well, that's a tautology, and we're not going to do them. Okay, so you're going to be in violation of a court order and the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Okay, next, the redaction log, basically conceding we didn't do a redaction log. We had a redaction summary that we gave to Congress. Is that good enough? No, it's not good enough. It's not what the Epstein Transparency Act requires, and it's not what the judge ordered. But that's 2. 3, handwritten notes related to the Trump accuser. It's really hard to do redactions on handwritten notes. So, ... Yeah, fuck off. Sorry for those. What time is it? Can I speak freely now? Fuck off. No, that's telling the judge to go F himself. And so on and so on. So Katie Fang's lawyers, and Katie Fang, I found out Katie Fang wrote a lot of this recent filing because I interviewed Brendan Ballou, whose interview is going up tomorrow, #1 on Legal AF YouTube channel. They said, "Judge, He's in contempt. Blanche is in contempt of court. He's contemptuous and contumacious of you. He's flouting your orders. Do something about it. Find him in contempt. Fine him $1,000 a day. Fine him $1,000 a day until he produces, not taxpayer dollars, Todd Blanche dollars. Do that. I don't know if they're going to do that, but Emmett Sullivan's going to do something. And the Trump world has another week to file their response. The curious thing is, and this is something Brendan told me I'll give you a little a cliffhanger or teaser. Brendan told me, I don't know why they didn't just appeal when Sullivan ruled against them on the preliminary injunction. Why are they still jerking around? And why, if that was going to be their response, why didn't they just appeal? Instead, they said, no, we're evaluating whether we should appeal, and we'll let you know. And if we do, like, fuck off. Something that Brendan couldn't say in his papers, but I certainly can say on the intersection. So again, does Todd Blanche need this hours before, on the eve of his confirmation hearing, contempt proceedings started against him, and 56 pages from Judge Williams, which is required reading for the Senate Judiciary Committee staffers, who I'm sure are ripping it up and cutting and pasting it into the briefing book, along with all the other millstones around Todd Blanche's neck for which he is responsible, including the Epstein files cover-up. You could just use Maggie Haberman's book with Jonathan Swan, freak out in the Situation Room, Epstein, Maxwell, sweetheart deal from Maxwell, a convicted child sex trafficker. Who thought politically that was going to help Donald Trump? Raise your hands. The fact that Donald Trump can't get clear of an international child sex trafficking ring by his own miscalculations and his own unwillingness to admit that his name is thousands of times recited in the files is just mind-boggling from a political suicide standpoint. Let me switch gears now. Got a good audience tonight, by the way. I'm looking at all the chat tonight. I'm going to get to some questions in a moment. E Jean Carroll. Who among us doesn't appreciate, love, and respect E Jean Carroll? The only person on planet Earth that's ever had a jury find that Donald Trump was a sex abuser, and took not just a 5.6 million and change jury verdict and with interest off of him, 9-0. She's 18-0, two separate juries. The other jury ruled in her favor by $83.5 million. Now over $90 million with interest. And Donald Trump's still effing with her, Oh, I'm going to file three different appeals. Second Circuit twice. United States Supreme Court attempted once, gets rejected. And then when on the eve when he's supposed to pay and Judge Kaplan orders him to pay, he runs to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Please, I don't want to pay. If I pay her, she may spend it. That was basically his argument. And Judge Eunice Lee, who was a Biden appointee, took one look at it and said, yeah, that's not irreparable harm. You need irreparable harm and inadequate remedy at law, two elements for a stay. And you saying that the other side's going to spend the money is not irreparable harm. You can go chase after her for the money the way she's been chasing after you. And he did not file, not that we know of, an emergency application with the Supreme Court, nor would they have granted it. He's dead in the water when it came to at least the first judgment. Just to bring this home, he filed through a law firm in New York, write it down, called Sullivan Cromwell, where it's the only major law firm in New York after Donald Trump attacked all the major law firms that was willing to do business with him. And boy, have they ever. Filed all the appeals in his criminal cases. And even when the law firm's partnership said, don't go up against E Jean Carroll, the sex abuse survivor, even they still filed the brief against E Jean Carroll. They filed a petition for writ of certiorari to try to convince the Supreme Court to take the case. Now, little tutorial here on Supreme Court practice. In order to get a an appeal taken at the Supreme Court, which is a court of limited jurisdiction that control their own docket, they control their own gate about who gets to come in. You have to file a writ of certiorari petition. You can do an emergency shadow docket. That's a different way. And then there has to be at least 4 votes of the 9 to want to hear the appeal and 5 to rule in your favor. Got to count to 4, then you got to count to 5. 13 times from February until 2 weeks ago, the United States Supreme Court considered that petition, and 13 times they refused to take it up, meaning he didn't have 4 votes. He probably had 2. If I had to guess, it was Thomas and Alito. You know, there's 2 people accused of sex offense and harassment that are on the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas and Kavanaugh. I was reminded of that when I watched clips of a very angry, theatrical, clutching at the pearls, Lindsey Graham defending Kavanaugh. Oh my God, in the history of the entire Senate, sir, no one is. I know all my Lindsey Grahams come out sounding like Foghorn Leghorn, the cartoon character, but that's what it always sounded like. Oh, in the history. Were you aware? I do declare. Like, oh God. And now we're going to have to watch Kavanaugh crying, again. So I had to watch those clips to kind of get ready for some other videos. And the 2 on there that have sex abuse histories or allegations of it, when they finally voted, they voted against, probably 9-0, close to it, and rejected the petition and put denied. And not one of them, not one did, issued a dissent. They didn't even help him out, Trump. They didn't even throw him a bone. Well, I would have, knowing that they were going to lose, they could have said, well, I would have granted the petition, knowing that it wouldn't have passed. No. So absolutely no invitation for Trump to do anything. It's done. You file a petition for writ of cert, it's denied by the court without dissent, especially, you are done. Oh no. They tell Judge Kaplan, who presides over the case, Judge, we're filing a motion for reconsideration. Attention, lawyers at Sullivan and Cromwell. Attention, lawyer for E Jean Carroll, Robbie Kaplan, who I know knows this. Robbie, file a motion for fees and costs for bad faith appeal and bad faith motion practice against Sullivan and Cromwell after you win. Because you're going to win. Because in 250 years, the Supreme Court has never granted a motion for reconsideration under the facts that I've just outlined, where no one dissented, and it just happened a week ago. And what's the allegations? Oh, they don't like the fact that Judge Kaplan let in other evidence of other sexual misconduct of Donald Trump against other women in the case of E. Jean Carroll. Not that he didn't do it. They just didn't want the evidence coming in. Well, under the federal rules of evidence, which have been adopted and passed by Congress, prior sexual misconduct is appropriate to go to a jury in a case about sexual misconduct. There, you just went to law school. I said legal AF intersection. It's like a law school and a TED Talk. Have a baby. So bad faith filing, bad faith appeal, get attorney's fees, more attorney's fees for you, and teach Sullivan and Cromwell a lesson once and for all. All these law firms and lawyers with amnesia about what happened to Donald Trump's first set of lawyers. Do I have time to list them all? If this was like a Saturday Night Live skit, or like Jimmy Fallon, it would be like going by on a scroll. I'm going to talk to my producers. We should have a scroll of the lawyers who have been indicted, disbarred, convicted, or all 3. Say it with me. Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, Sidney Powell, Ken Chesborough, Jeffrey Clark. There's others. There's others. All in the rogues gallery of disbarred. And if you want to throw in there, Alina Habba, fined. And there'll be more. There'll be more. That's why Todd Blanche has been busy trying to bash bar associations and bar regulators. You're not allowed to regulate us. We are the United States of America. For now. For now you are. For a time. But that time will end. And you will recede into the public as an anonymous civilian subject to investigation and prosecution. this amazing combination of power madness and power hunger and the aphrodisiac of power combined with amnesia, right? I'm not describing the Trump derangement syndrome, except if that's the term you're using for his lawyers and his existing Department of Justice. They run around with impunity like they're not going to suffer the consequences, and they are, as long as at the midterms, adults return to hold the gavels. Now, E Jean Carroll got her $5.6 million, and she's gonna, I believe, get her $91 million running with interest as soon as the Supreme Court comes back into term and they deny the petition for writ of certiorari about the second E Jean Carroll case, where she won $83.5 million after Donald Trump testified and infamously walked out, buttoned his big jacket and his long tie, and walked out during the closing argument of Robbie Kaplan. Bad look, bad optics in front of a jury about abusing women as you walk out on a female lawyer in a closing argument. But this should come as no surprise. Robbie Kaplan has told people in interviews that he effectively called her the C word at the end of a deposition. Oh, yes, he did. And I guess he thought nobody would care or remember it. As he left a deposition about E Jean Carroll, he turned, this is Robbie Kaplan's reporting, he turned to Donald Trump. Donald Trump turned to Robbie Kaplan and said, "See you next Tuesday." And Robbie, who's, she is a tough person. I love many things about her. She turned to her staff and said, "We don't have anything scheduled on Tuesday, do we?" And she had to laugh about it. In retrospect, they said, "No, he just called you the C word." Oh, yeah. And so I had the opportunity to interview E Jean Carroll. It was almost a year ago. And she asked me at a certain point to predict what would happen. It's like a time capsule. First of all, I was so honored to be on with her. I was in Turkey, of all places, with my family. I was reuniting my family after the birth of my daughter, and we traveled there. And when I read that the Court of History guys on Legal AF were going to interview E Jean Carroll, I was like, "Oh, I'm such a big fan. Can I get on?" And it turned out she was a big fan of Legal AF too, which was doubly amazing. But let me play you the clip, and it's so prescient about what's going on right now. Let's play the clip of E Jean Carroll. It was waived by Alina Habba and others a long, long time ago, and a long, long time ago, as referenced in the back-to-back oral arguments that Robbie so successfully argued in the last month or so. I don't see the United States Supreme Court, even this MAGA right-wing court, being that interested in events that happened when he was Citizen Trump, when he attacked you and defamed you. At all. There's only one event or one series of events that happened when he was even president, which was the defamation after the fact. I just don't see this court in a civil matter having given him carte blanche in the criminal world, even they bailing him out and trying to do anything to undermine your judgments. That's my opinion.
I concur.
Looking good. Looking good.
Yeah, I like that.
Does Robbie or anybody else give you a timeline on how this is going to work out or when?
No, but we have a foundation already set up, lobe and lobe, by the chair, Rachel Harris of the State Department. We've got the foundation ready to go. We're just waiting for the money, and then that money is going to be given out.
I know Ben, my podcast partner, was trying to convince you not to give it all out.
Yeah,
he mentioned something about he wanted to see you have it.
No, I don't need it. What? I'm 81. I know money doesn't make me happy. Adventure, going for a walk with the dogs, having a great fettuccine Alfredo. That's the stuff that makes.
I love so many things about E Jean Carroll. Not letting being a Trump survivor define her, and yet finding a way to brand Donald Trump the scarlet letter of being a sexual abuser forever. That will be in the first line or two of his obituary, among other scandals. And then using the money, she's let it be known that she's going to be using it. But here's the thing that I said at the top. that she's doing that's so exquisite to pay back Donald Trump, something a court did not order her to do. Donald Trump was all hot and bothered about, she's going to spend the money. You know, you heard her. You know, she didn't say on Popok's show, but she might as well have. And no court blocked her. She could have taken the money today when it got paid to her today and done whatever she wanted to do. If E Jean Carroll wanted to take the money, put it in a giant pile in the middle of Fifth Avenue, cover it with kerosene in front of Trump Tower and set it ablaze, that was her prerogative. That is her prerogative. And there would be a certain amount of cosmic justice in that as well, because she's always said she didn't do it for the money. Donald Trump keeps saying she did it for the money, trying to shake him down and the rest. So as Donald Trump was boo-hooing about who's going to stop her from spending the money, she declared through her lawyer that she is going to hold the money in Robbie Kaplan's bank account, trust account, with interest running until the Supreme Court finally puts that last nail and rejects his petition for rehearing. Then they're going to go for attorney's fees and costs, and they're going to laugh out loud at Donald Trump. And they're going to say, I never wanted the money. I didn't need the money. In fact, I'm not even taking the money. You say it's all about the money. I'm not even taking the money. It's just such a brilliant maneuver to prove to the world what E Jean Carroll has always said, is that she was never and has been never driven by the money, period. So we've got that going on. Let me look at some questions that have cropped up. Let me go. I got a long list of questions that have cropped up. Let's see what's going on here. Wisconsin going after Elon Musk for election fraud. Well, I mean, there's a bipartisan commission that said he shouldn't offer $1 million lottery to buy votes. I agree with that. Demon Deacon 21 says, if the Judiciary Committee starts the nomination 12-12, can only the 24 members attending the hearing vote? No. There's no requirement that you can vote after. It's not like the Supreme Court where, you know, by tradition, you got to have participated in the process in order to vote. So no, that's not going to stop them. That's why they're taking their sweet time to add the person, because they don't need them in the room. They just need them for the vote. Ron DeSantis, maybe he's a term. Yeah, I mean, DeSantis as Attorney General has been floated before. The problem is that even though Trump bashes people like Marco Rubio and then he sets them up to be, you know, candidates for president, there's still no love lost between DeSantis and Donald Trump. And Trump needs a loyalist who will do anything for him. And I don't think DeSantis fits that bill. So I'm not sure he gets that. What form of payment did E Jean Carroll get from Donald Trump? Trump posted a cash bond with the court system. This is from Ariel.it3, something like that. He posted a cash bond for that one. So the cash has been sitting in the court registry, electronic system, interest-bearing account. He's had to up the amount based on a statutory interest rate. That's why it got up to $5.6 million and change. And it all got paid out. Electronic transfer today from the court system, but it's Trump's money, directly to Robbie Kaplan, her lawyer's trust account. The $83.5 million, now $91 million, that is a surety bond backed by, it's like an assurity company or insurance company backing it. It has as collateral, apparently, Donald Trump's Charles Schwab account. You know, he's best friends with Chuck Schwab. I don't know if you guys saw the reporting. Tens of thousands of electronic trades in Schwab account owned by Donald Trump, which I think has been part of it's been pledged, one of them anyway, to support the surety bond posted by him. See, the reason the bonds get posted is if you don't post a bond, then you ought, and you are the judgment debtor. Donald Trump is a judgment debtor of E Jean Carroll, who is a judgment creditor. That's the terms that we use in the law. If you don't post a bond while you're taking your appeal, you can take your appeal, but you got to pay the money. That's why it happens all the time. That's why there wasn't a stay, because some people just can't afford the bond. They can't get a bond. They can't afford a bond, and they pay it, and then they got to get it back if they win on appeal. Not everybody can post a bond. And so Trump used a surety company rather than pay it cash. Surety company has collateral with Trump, and the surety company has affirmed, has sworn in a legal document that they will pay up as soon as there's a court order to do so. And so as soon as that last petition for writ of certiorari about the $83.5 million judgment is rejected by the Supreme Court, Judge Kaplan will order the surety company to pay the money to her. Trump will run off and try to get a stay and all this other bullshit. But I think by first quarter of 2020, the last quarter of 2026, first quarter of 2027, she's getting paid. She's getting paid for sure. Let me see. I'll answer one more question. What would happen? Let's see. Greta, back at you. What would happen to Katie and Allison's case if Blanche isn't confirmed as AG and when he's no longer acting AG, since they sued him in his official capacity? Nothing. It just you're talking about Katie Fang's suit against Todd Blanche in his official capacity for the Epstein files, Allison Gill on the Jan 6 committee, weaponization fund, Mueller, she wrote. Nothing. It'll just switch to whoever the current attorney general is. All those cases against like Kristi Noem just became Mark Wayne Mullen cases in their official capacity. So I think I've answered that one. So let me wrap up the show now that I've taken some time to answer some questions as well. We've got a great audience tonight. We're at our height. We're almost 8,000 people. With the Supreme Court, we barely see them. You know, they're up on with black robes. There's a bill that's rapidly making its way through the Senate to have oral arguments, which are currently audio, be live streamed, video as well. I would love that. And then you see the Supreme Court justice when they do conferences and they give interviews. They step down from the hermetically sealed bench, and they write books. Like Amy Coney Barrett's running around with a book. And the rest. And then, they testify at a Senate committee hearing about, we're scared for our safety. Or, Amy Coney Barrett, my son saw my bulletproof vest during the abortion decision. Yeah, well, maybe you shouldn't have voted against women's rights to choose. I mean, I have a response for most of this. But on Capitol Hill today was an odd couple, Elena Kagan and Amy Coney Barrett. Elena Kagan, side note, was never a judge before she became a United States Supreme Court Associate Justice. She was a Solicitor General office, White House counsel, never a judge. No requirement that you ever be a judge. None. You could be nothing. You could be, a mayor. You could be a cab driver. You could be whatever, if you could be put on the United States Supreme, it'd be hard to get through the confirmation process, but there's no requirement that you have been a judge. Probably helps if you've been a judge, but no requirement of being a judge. And so that's why when people said, put Barack Obama on, whoever at the time, Michelle Obama. Well, the Democrats get it, and there's opening in spaces. These are all legitimate nominees, depending upon their age. But Kagan and then Amy Coney Barrett, who got slammed in 40 days when she shouldn't have been, to take Ruth Bader Ginsburg's slot. I don't know why I'm having trouble with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I have a Ruth Bader Ginsburg action figure on my desk every day. And suddenly I can't remember. Ooh, it's a long day. Long day of recording. So they show up on Capitol Hill, and we kind of put together a mashup of the best of their testimony. Let's play the clip.
The Capitol Police Chief recently testified that threats against Congress are up 50% this year. The Supreme Court police expect a smaller but still very substantial 38% annual increase in threats this year, which follows a 25% increase last year. For some of us, those threats have come very close, and all of us live with the knowledge that they may again materialize.
One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago, around the time of the Dobbs leak. My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest. I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one. Many of us, me included, have received threatening, anonymous deliveries designed to intimidate and harass us. They are often sent in the name of Judge Salas's son, who I think, as you mentioned in the beginning, Mr. Chairman, is deceased because he was killed by a disgruntled lawyer who showed up at Judge Salas's home intending to kill her, but her son, 20 years old at the time, opened the door and took the bullet instead. Her husband, standing behind, was seriously injured. So I think the message on these deliveries being sent in his name is clear.
It always disgusts me when somebody like Amy Coney Barrett takes the name of Judge Salas in vain. Judge Salas is an advocate against the type of attacks on judges that are perpetrated by Donald Trump, her patron, Amy Coney Barrett's patron. We've had Judge Salas on Legal AF for Stand Up for Justice talking about the attacks on the judiciary because Donald Trump has given license to attacking the judiciary. How convenient that Amy Coney Barrett has amnesia. Seems to be a thematic today. And doesn't remember that her own client in Donald Trump had no problem, including being guided by Todd Blanche and Emil Bovee, now on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, and John Sauer, now our Solicitor General, who all condoned and enabled Donald Trump to bash Judge Merchan in New York, his daughter and his wife, to bash Judge Engoron, his wife and his law clerk, to bash Judge Chutkan, presided over his election interference case, to bash Chief Judge Boasberg, to bash Judge Zinnes in Maryland in the Abrego Garcia case, to bash every judge that has ruled against them and their families and their ancestors, to bash Judge Cooper in the Kennedy Center case and his wife. And that gives the permission structure and the license for people to say, well, that guy's doing it. Tone is set from the top. I'll do it. I'll send pizzas, and I'll dox, and I'll SWAT, and I don't know what it's called when you do pizzas. Where did you think it came from? When Joe Biden was in office? When was the last time Joe Biden ever bashed a judge? And this increase in hostility and physical, violent, assassinating threats against the judiciary is, if you want to look for the root cause, it's Donald Trump and MAGA. And their disgusting, wash out their mouth with soap approach to public discourse. How many times do I have to read dumbass, shithole country, fuck off from a president of the United States? He thinks it's funny. He thinks it's populist, thinks he makes him a man of the people. What people? He just got his polling numbers wrong. He said, thank you, everybody. 59% of America supports me. Thank you. Did he get the numbers upside down? There is a 59% in the polling data. 59% of America hates the Trump administration and his policies. 59%. It's even lower than that. I mean, I've seen the real politics and other averages of polls, and he is down into the low threes, high twos. And with the plus or minus, he's probably really at a real 25% approval rating. And it's worse when you break it down by demographics. Independents, 75% reject Donald Trump. Women have now approaching 60%. Hispanic Americans, over 70%. Voters under 30, over 70%. Black Americans, 92% rejection rate. Higher. Every group that he rode into power on has turned their back on Donald Trump because of his policies, because of his depravity, because of his kleptocracy, because of his criminal and unethical conduct, because he's unfit to be the president of the United States. You know how many presidents I've said that about in the last 50 years? One. I criticized other presidents, but said they were unfit for office? One. And so to hear Amy Coney Barrett talk about, I don't know why the public is so, bleh. Yeah, we know why. We know why. Say it. Say it. Right? It's the first step of getting help. Acknowledge you have a problem. And we know what the problem's name is. Say it. We do on the Midas Touch Network, on the intersection. I'm so glad you're here with me tonight. Help us continue to grow this audience. You're here already, an amazing crowd. We'll probably get a 200,000, 300,000 people watching it on YouTube. We need audio downloads. Come over to everywhere you get your audio podcast from, whether it's Spotify or Google or Apple, whatever. Plug in the intersection with Michael Popok and hit download. That's one. That helps us a lot. Come over to Legal AF YouTube, which I curate for your viewing pleasure, along with a dozen other contributors like the ACLU, NAACP, Adam Klasfeld, Court Accountability Action, Court of History guys, and the rest. You're not going to want to miss our must-see YouTube 10, 12 videos every day. Come over to Legal AF Substack, become a member there as well. All the legal filings, opinions, memos, and orders that I use as source material for my reporting, you will find on Legal AF Substack. It's the reason we are the top law and politics Substack in America, all because of you. Join now, become a member, and catch me for my live report every day. Those are all the different ways to do what we do together. Your generosity of time, of spirit, of commitment, and sometimes of dollars is overwhelming to us. It is the fuel that fuels everything we do in the Midas universe, right? It's like the Marvel universe, in the Midas universe, and all of its subparts and collaborative parts like Legal AF. And I do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us here for Legal AF. For the intersection live tonight on the Midas Touch Network. And I will see you tomorrow, programming note, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. I'll start it at 8:45 Eastern Time. Todd Blanche confirmation hearing. Live tab on Legal AF YouTube. That's one. Tomorrow night, we'll catch up with a midweek. Am I doing that tomorrow night? No, Wednesday night. Where am I? I don't know how calendars work anymore. Wednesday night, midweek edition of Legal AF on the Midas Touch Network. We'll catch up there. Saturday, another podcast, Legal AF edition with my co-founder, Ben Mysalis, on the Midas Touch Network. So until my next report, shout out to the Midas Mighty. Shout out to the Legal AFers. And shout out to the intersectionists. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.